Dear Governor Sandoval, I'm writing you this video letter to tell you I'm opposed to SB 271. SB 271, proposed by my Senator James Settlemyre, would abolish the interstate compact between California and Nevada that runs the TRPA and devolve all the federal duties of the TRPA onto the Nevada TRPA. I know this sounds like an esoteric issue, but it is really, really economically vital to this region. And I'm here to convince you why it is that, despite all of its problems, Lake Tahoe still needs a planning agency. Needs it more badly than ever, in fact. I gotta tell you, I've lived in Tahoe a good chunk of my life. I was born on the California side in the South Shore, lived down in Gardnerville for about 10 years, and now I'm back living in the Nevada side. And I am not particularly pleased with the state of the economy or the environment up here. I run the tourist channel for Lake Tahoe. Well, I run a tourist channel for Lake Tahoe. It's not the only one. And I go out photographing all the time. And I did an anti-littering PSA. For 30 seconds of PSA, I got 3 hours of footage of litter. If that isn't a planning fail, what is? The point of the TRPA is to clean up the Lake Tahoe Basin's environment. And in the current circumstances, the TRPA does not do that job very well. They're supposed to balance economic issues with environmental issues, but the system the way it is right now winds up with everything being resolved 10 years later in a lawsuit after everyone's already gone bankrupt trying to do it. That's certainly not sustainable. But abolishing the TRPA winds up with an entirely different set of consequences that are every bit as bad. Do you know how much federal funding is involved through the TRPA? The TRPA is slated to manage almost $500 million in federal funds over the next 10 years. 15 million this year alone. If we abolish the TRPA, those federal funds cease to exist. Those federal funds are deeded specifically to the TRPA, and if we abolish the TRPA, they cease to exist. Ask yourself, you're a Republican, you don't want to increase taxes on the taxpayers of Nevada. Can the state of Nevada really afford to take on a $500 million liability for their share of Tahoe's maintenance? And if you abolish the agency, are those federal mandates going to go away? No. There are lots of people who will sue to enforce the federal mandates on the state of Nevada. So you're going to have millions of dollars of lawsuit costs abolishing this agency, disqualify us from $500 million in federal funding, and it's funding that we probably wouldn't get back in the current Congress. So if the major structure is revised, we lose all this money. Not only do we lose the money, we lose jobs. The TRPA, bloated as it is, does employ a lot of people, and they're good-paying jobs. And with Tahoe's unemployment rate at 14%, can we really afford to add 300 or 400 more local people on unemployment who used to be doing something socially productive? Now, one of the major arguments from the people who are for abolishing the TRPA is that it would help make development happen faster. I gotta say, there's a lot of failed development in Lake Tahoe. The current system certainly isn't working, so I'm sympathetic to the idea of reforming the TRPA to make development happen faster. But if you abolish the agency, there's no general plan. What does the federal court say you have to do if there's no general plan in Lake Tahoe? Moratorium. So we're going to enforce a 10-year building moratorium until we get the environmental regs straightened out without an environmental agency? When we're about to approve a general plan that would carry us forward for the next 10 years anyway? This would be a huge setback to development. I don't want the hole to stay a hole forever. I do not want to have to deal with it. One of the arguments they've been making is not having California dominate the TRPA means that the local people have no voice. But you're saying that the county commission should do it? Do you know how the Douglas County Commission is structured? Everybody in the county votes for every single county commissioner. So Lake Tahoe can't swing a single district in the county commission, even the one that represents us. I don't want somebody who I can't swing a single vote for determining it. If you're going to reform the TRPA, my suggestion would be you reform it to allow basin-wide or local referenda on projects. That way, if the TRPA approves something really controversial, you can have the possibility of the voters of Lake Tahoe, and only Lake Tahoe, please, deciding on whether or not the project should go ahead, rather than having it be wrapped up for 10 years in court. And there needs to be some legal protection that if the TRPA said you could build it, you don't have to tear it down halfway through when it's built. I am so frustrated as a photographer that there are empty holes everywhere I point my camera. And there is absolutely nothing I as a citizen can do about it. There is nobody I can vote for who can ensure there will be development in Tahoe, because it's entirely up to the federal courts. There needs to be some sort of an exemption such that if the TRPA approved it and the voters didn't vote it down, it gets built. Because the current state of affairs doesn't benefit either the economy or the environment. Perpetuating a 50-year running development fail is not urban planning. We need to tear down the old inefficient buildings and build new environmentally sensible buildings to a strict standard. And what is the only agency that would have the authority to enforce that on a basin-wide basis? The TRPA. Yes, reform the TRPA's enforcement process. I agree. Make it such that people can indeed lose money by violating the economic and environmental rules they set. Make it so their decision is final, so that people don't have to go through endless appeals in the courts. But do not abolish the agency just because of the terrible, terrible consequences that would bring. Thank you. I look forward to hearing that you're going to veto SB 271. Goodbye.